Penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeager? I thought his name was Yeager. As in U.S. Air Force legend Chuck Yeager. The man who broke the sound barrier for the first time. Yeager, not Jägermeister. Come on. I know a lot of you guys at college campuses are listening, and you know what I'm talking about. But his name is Yeager. That's right, I'm talking about Star Wars Resistance. More information about the upcoming Lucasfilm animated series was revealed this week via a promotional video. And in the video, it's revealed that the character goes by the name Yeager, even though it's spelled the same as Chuck Yeager's spelling. Oh, well, there goes that theory. That you know what? I don't think so. I think the character still can be a tribute to Chuck Yeager, even if they do call him Yeager.
Yeager was a pilot for the Rebellion.
Now he's just trying to live his life as mainly a mechanic on this installation in the middle of nowhere.
The character Jarek Yeager. See, I still want to call him Yeager. I can't. I'll get used to it soon enough. Hey, thanks for joining us this week on Rebel Force Radio for the week of, this is for Friday, August 31st, 2018. Countdown to Star Wars Resistance is happening. And Jason Swank, he couldn't be here with us this week. Sort of like Newt Gunray. He's not in this episode. But we do have an old friend joining us in his place. And I'm talking about our man from London, Mr. Paul Bateman.
Hey!
Hey, Paul. Now,
Hi,
Paul,
everybody.
Hey, it's so great to have you back on Rebel Force Radio. We've been, at least I've been struggling to schedule my time so we could do a Star Wars Influences. I see all you people online asking Paul, hey, what about Star Wars Influences? What about it? And I got to be honest with you, it's all on me. I'm the one who's been sort of dragging his feet about it. It's been a busy summer, folks. It's been a real busy summer. And so I had the opportunity to have Paul on the regular Rebel Force Radio this week. And so I jumped at that opportunity. I said, hey, forget Influences. Forget it altogether. We are going to have a good old time talking Star Wars on the main show. And Paul, it's been a while since we've had you on. There's been so much revealed. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Star Wars Resistance. I don't feel like we dug deep enough under the surface of Solo, a Star Wars story. So, so that's obviously something I'm going to want to talk about on the show a little bit and add a little Star Wars Influences vibe to this episode. We're going to review The Art of Solo book. I have it right here. The Art of Solo, awesome hardcover, written by Phil Szostak. And it's a really great book featuring tons of incredible production art, concept art, and design for Solo, a Star Wars story. So we're going to dig deep into that, and we're going to have a friend of mine join us for that review later in the show. What would you think if I told you someone saw Solo in the theaters over 20 times?
I'd say they were a lot less busy than I am. I would love to have seen it 20 times. I totally would have done that.
And
it would have been wicked.
She's probably among the most hardcore fans of Solo, a Star Wars story. And she'll be joining us later on in the show. And, of course, there's been big casting news this week regarding Episode 9, which is the only Star Wars movie going in front of cameras this year, thankfully. But we also have... What's that, Paul?
it's bizarre that is an unusual thing now. You know, like we're only getting one this year.
Only one, but
it's too strange.
But I think as the year goes on, there's going to be plenty of other Star Wars in front of the camera, the TV camera, that is, with the live action show going into production. I would imagine it's going into in front of the cameras later this year or early next year. Do we know, Paul, when they're going to start up that series?
I think they're in pre-production now, aren't they? I mean, there's a lot going on. I'm hearing rehearsals and such like, which normally means they're it won't take them long before they start filming. So
yeah.
I would think this year, yeah. So
later this year we're talking 10 full episodes. So you probably
10.
think
it's crazy, isn't it? I remember when the only shows that had 10 episodes a season were all from Britain. You know, American shows were always 28, 25 episodes or something, weren't they?
Yeah.
You know, so it's strangely short seasons. But if they're as expensive as they're going to be, I'm still trying to figure out what I should expect from it. You know, when the budget for the whole season is reputedly, did they say 100 million for 10 episodes or something like that?
Yeah.
But now we're hearing maybe that figure's way off, and that was just a guess. So yeah.
Well, yeah, a while or an estimate, at the very least. But as the season goes on, they'll probably be planning something for a big season finale, which would probably drive up the price per show.
I can't wait for it. Can you imagine working a live action TV show? It's so cool.
It's really hard to wrap my mind around because I've been thinking about it for years now. Let's just face it. I've been thinking about this for years. George Lucas first mentioned the concept of a live action show at Star Wars Celebration 3 back in 2005.
Yeah.
So
bonkers, isn't it?
Obviously, it's been something that's been at the forefront of a lot of fans' minds over the last over the last decade, let's just say. So
it'll be really odd if we start getting these if we start getting 2-parters or 3-parters, and it starts feeling like a full movie. If we get arcs that are kind of pretty tight like that, it'll be strange to kind of go from just having a handful of Blu-rays on your deck to suddenly having hundreds of them. It'd be amazing. I'd love to think that they could do a live action show that's so popular that it immediately spins off into something else, and before you know it, we've got like 3 shows running at once. Because I think judging from how Disney's handled the film side of things, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they were like super keen to get more than one show going. I mean, if one's a hit, I'm sure they'll just immediately jump on something else.
I think Bob Iger, in one of his earnings calls he does for investors, I think Bob Iger mentioned that there were multiple television series. But he could have been thinking a combination of live action and animated. But you don't know. You just don't know. I think it would be odd for them to announce a second live action show without testing the waters first with with their initial offering on TV.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel as though it's one of those things where you can look at something like Star Trek and just kind of go, well, there have been plenty of occasions where they had 2 shows running simultaneously, haven't they? They overlapped quite a bit. So I guess they'd look at that and kind of say, well, that made money back then, and this is Star Wars. Everybody's sees Star Wars as being the big earner, despite the little blip we've had with Solo. I think everybody's expecting to start raking in off a TV show, and I don't know. I find myself. Do you watch a lot of TV, Jimmy?
I don't. I really don't. I watch very limited amounts of television, as a matter of fact. I watch morning news shows. I leave the TV on while The Price is Right is on. And that's become a real guilty pleasure for me. I actually find myself yelling and screaming at the TV at 10 o'clock in the morning like it's the Super Bowl or something. But
right.
And I play along at home sometimes too. When I'm actually paying attention to it, a lot of the times it's just on in the background and I'm going about my business. But and I watch a lot of sports, but I don't really watch much television, like series. The rest of my family certainly do. They watch everything. But
I watch tons, man. Tons.
No, I don't.
I mean, I just kind of feel like it's a real golden age for television at the minute. So I think that, I'm sure if George was still involved in Star Wars, he probably would have got this happening even sooner by now. I'm sure his version of the live action show probably would have been running by now if he was still kind of holding the reins, I think. I feel really excited about it just in terms of I often think, like, I watch a movie these days, and 2 hours just isn't really enough. I kind of feel by the end of those 2 hours, I've barely got to get to know the characters, and even though it might be full of spectacle and it might be full of stuff that's exciting to me, I always feel like I've got part of a story. Whereas these TV shows now that burn through sort of 10 episodes and often release them within weeks of each other, there's just something really satisfying about the way that those story arcs can kind of expand and get really, really deep. I mean, you guys don't check out Game of Thrones or anything yet, do you?
No, Swank has watched it a little bit, but it
is very Moorish, like once you get going, it's one of those shows where you'll end up watching a season at a time, like in a blink. You'll just get, you'll crack into it, and it is really satisfying. It is one of those stories where things happen. It sounds silly, but how many shows did you used to watch in the 70s and 80s where you could just pick it up anywhere and everything's the same?
Right.
Like certainly like the early Treks and stuff like that. But with Game of Thrones, you never know who's going to die. You never know what's going to happen, and that's very addictive. So I'd love to think that a Star Wars show could be that.
Back in the pre-Netflix days,
surprising. Yeah.
I used to enjoy HBO shows a lot, like The Sopranos and all those shows. But this was prior to the age of Netflix. And so I would watch serial television with my wife and stuff, and she'd be like, "Oh, we have to watch ER. We have to watch ER." Every week she would say that, and every week ER would have a beginning, a middle, and an end where nothing happened. There was nothing of consequence to any of the characters, or they would just drag out these storylines for seasons, full seasons at a time, 2 seasons, where nothing would happen until like the last episode of the season. And I found that to be very frustrating. So that's why I like dramas that are on AMC or Netflix, because things actually do happen. And also, HBO, of course, standing strong with Game of Thrones, like you said. And that's definitely a show where, people have had absolute meltdowns about multiple favorite characters getting wiped out at the beginning of the show. It's kind of like The Last Jedi. It's like people come out of The Last Jedi all upset. Princess Leia, Admiral Akbar, all your favorites. They're all dead. They're all gone. But I like that. I like that in drama. I like the stakes to be really high, and I like it where characters are not invulnerable. And so I think that adds to a lot of the drama. And I think we'll be seeing that with the new Star Wars series that only lasts 10 episodes. I think it'll be a show that will be for adults. When I say for adults, I mean that I think it'll be something that the entire family will be able to enjoy. But it won't be family programming necessarily, I think that there will be an edge to it that will make it attractive to adults if they're spending all that money on it.
I absolutely would love. I know you guys didn't really kind of get hooked into Babylon 5, did you, back when it came out?
Nope.
And I'm sure there are lots of kids out there who weren't even born when Babylon 5 came out. And I think that for me, that was super impactful just purely because before Babylon 5 came along, all we really had in terms of kind of quality sci-fi TV was the old Trek, and that did become one of those shows where you knew that probably everybody was going to be fine at the end of the episode, and you could probably arrange all the episodes in a different order, and mostly it would just, it could all have taken place, like the week before. But Babylon 5, when that came out, he tried to really... The reason why I respect that show so much is that despite the fact that they clearly had a fraction of the budget of Trek or Star Wars or anything like that, they had peanuts to work with, but they didn't let it get in the way of their storytelling. And they told these huge, epic stories about the birth of the universe and the end of the universe and all this stuff, finding giant buried spaceships and all that. And the CG really was just fledgling stuff, and it really wasn't up to it. Right. And if you look at it now, any kid now would look at it and just kind of go, what is this, But I think if you entered into it, it was one of those stories that was really kind of captivating, and it did that kind of stuff where one of the big arcs was that the bad guys turned out to be the good guys, and the good guys turned out to be the bad guys, and that the bad guys were essentially spoiler. But it changed so many times that this is not like an end game. But that the bad guys were kind of like trying to make get the main characters kind of strong enough to cope with a future threat by basically kind of putting them through hell. So they were kind of like training them up to be ready for the invasion, that was on its way. So that was a big twist, and those kind of it almost felt like Lord of the Rings in outer space, So you could kind of overlook the fact that there was the occasional filler episode just because it had this ambitious arc. And what I'd like from the new Star Wars shows, or at least one of them, is to feel like we're getting something that's really got some meat on its bones as far as story goes. Because I feel like what I don't want is a show that feels like they're figuring it out as they go along. And I know that a lot of people have been complaining about the feeling, getting that feeling a little bit on the new movies, just purely because clearly that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
That they don't have an overall arc figured out. But it would be great to sort of like feel like the story's really going somewhere, and that there's really, there are some really built-in questions that really kind of intrigue you, and mysteries and all the kind of stuff that great stories have, and I feel like we're a bit lacking in that at the minute with Star Wars. I'd love to, kind of explore some of the stuff in Star Wars that we don't know a lot about, perhaps find out a little bit more about, how the Jedi started, or the nature of the Sith and all this kind of stuff. I'd love them to kind of like really dig deep. In a way, it's a bit like I know when we've chatted to Jason before about Star Wars in the expanded universe, Jason's quite often complained about the fact that it seems to him, and it does to me too sometimes, but the books sometimes they just feel like the wrong place for Star Wars because it's so much about action and visuals that it tends to kind of get bogged down in details in books, and that's not really what Star Wars is kind of about. But on TV, it could be both, couldn't it? It could give us what we get from the movie, but we could also kind of dig into real kind of novel level kind of digging over the details. So it could be really like informative and expansive. And I know we've had animated shows for a long time and stuff, but I expect the live action show to be something very, very different from that.
Well, let me ask you a question about the live action show, and this is something we've been speculating a lot, is how are they going to roll it out, do you think? Do you think we're going to get all 10 episodes at once for a hardcore weekend of binging, or is this going to be something that they're going to roll out gradually, one episode a week?
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think with the budget being what it is, I imagine that they'll do it one a week just purely just to get that advertising revenue in, So I think they'll go for that. I think it'll be a slow release. I imagine that's the approach they'll have to take, really, because if they did just kind of drop them all out there, I think, then they wouldn't be able to make as much money off it. I don't think so. All I really hope for is I hope that the focus when it comes to what they put their money on, I hope that the focus is finding the best proven writers they can. I want this to be the best written Star Wars we've encountered in years. I want it to be brilliantly written, and they can make that happen. They can just go to the most consistently successful, talented, imaginative, award-winning writers that there are out there, and that for me would be step one, is make sure this is written by the best people that they can find. And I think that because we're not talking about movie budgets, I don't think we can expect it to look like regular Star Wars all the time, in as much as, loads and loads of space sequences and stuff like that. But I think, you look at stuff like Battlestar Galactica, which, most of us were crazy about and stuff, and I think that visually they pulled off an enormous amount for the money that they had. So I think, provided they're not planet hopping all the time, I think we can expect it to feel like one of the Star Wars movies, but I think, for my money, it would be like invest in really, really fantastic actors and really, really good writers.
Right. Well, we want good writers,
sure we
obviously.
Have something that we adore, It's not enough for it to just have Star Wars stuck on it. It needs to be good in its own right,
Yeah, you're not setting your expectations too high. Using words like adore. This better be something we adore.
Yeah. Well,
No, I appreciate your standards. Don't get me wrong.
Don't get me wrong. Be there for it, and there is such a deluge of content now. Yeah. It's like, I want it to be as successful as it can be.
Well, let's talk about the people who are working on the TV show. We know Jon Favreau certainly is working on it. And on August 17th, Jon posted a very curious photograph up on Facebook. It's a picture of Jon along with the man in the hat, Dave Filoni, standing in front of the main house at Skywalker Ranch. And the caption simply reads, Enjoying a Day at the Ranch with Dave Filoni. Now, we could jump to many conclusions about this. Did they, Dave, obviously, he's no stranger to Skywalker Ranch, goes there all the time to work on animated projects, what have you, or even occasionally offering some of his expertise to the filmmaking crews who are working on the Star Wars films when they decide to gather up at Skywalker Ranch. Jon Favreau at Skywalker Ranch. Why would he be there? Well, obviously, they're developing this live-action TV show. So you mentioned there most likely are rehearsals going on, and some of those rehearsals could be taking place in front of green screen over in the studios there at in the Tech Building. There could be some things going on there, or even some sort of story conferences could be happening at Skywalker Ranch. So you have Favreau and Filoni standing there. Now, they could have just bumped into each other, right? Outside of the main house. Hey,
no way.
No. They're there together. It says, enjoying a day at the ranch with Dave Filoni. So he's with Filoni. So what kind of assumptions can we draw out of this picture? Why are they there together? Yeah, massive one. I think Dave Filoni, and we've been playing a guessing game as far as this goes, but I think Dave has a solid and legitimate role as on the creative team for the live action show. And,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think like you've only got to look at all the pictures that get released, and as much as anything, it's kind of what do they never do, And they very rarely put out official photographs like this, do they? It's a very unusual thing. It's normally like, look at us all doing a reading,
right?
Look at us, announcing the casting of a new film. Look at us, blah blah. And for my money, it's just like, look, these two guys are working together. I mean, it just feels like a total no-brainer. And I mean, especially given the current climate, where fandom is clearly divided, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of negativity out there. And Star Wars could very definitely do with an injection of positivity in every way it can get it, And I think like just seeing John and David together outside Skywalker Ranch, I think it puts a lot of fans into hyperdrive when it comes to feeling excited about the future of Star Wars. And for my money, I mean, I used to work as an animation director for an educational software company years ago before it kind of really got state of the art. And for a long time, I've been saying like Dave should be directing live action just purely because I think the skill set is essentially the same. Especially when you work in as much as Dave has done, where he's dealing with actors and he's people mistakenly think it's got nothing in common with directing live action, but there's actually a lot. I mean, he's still working with actors, and when he's working with animators, he's getting their performances right. Even though they're not sort of standing there acting in front of a camera, he's getting them to perform with the animation, and it's a very similar process.
Well, that part is, but I mean, there's a lot of headaches that guys in that director's chair have to deal with that are very uncommon in the animated world, and
Just Jimmy, like what? Like,
just having to manage all the people and all the unpredictability and all, having to improvise because an animal that was trained to be on set isn't acting the way it's supposed to. I mean, there's a million different things that could happen in live action that you would never account. They could never account for in animation, and so. And when you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in budget on the line, it's a rocky thing,
In animation, though, you tend to find that like an animation director, although obviously they have assistants and help and stuff like that, they're pretty much on their own when it comes to a certain portion of the work. Whereas the director on set, they'll probably have 4 assistant directors for a start. So all the stuff you're talking about can literally be dealt with by the ADs. So, I mean, all the, like, why isn't this here? And all the, this needs to happen by X. That's not the guy in the chair or the gal in the chair directing. They don't necessarily need to worry about any of that. It's the same in terms of like, okay, what have I got in front of me? But in terms of getting it all to happen, they have a whole squad of people helping them. It's not as different as you might think. I mean, there are differences, but and especially with something like Star Wars, where what we're hearing is that Favreau's taking a really similar approach to the one that he took on Jungle Book, which for anybody that doesn't know, basically they shot in a jungle on a soundstage that didn't exist. It's all green screen, and most of the characters were animated, most of the environment was animated, and all that. So essentially, it's kind of like bed knobs and broomsticks of the 21st century.
Yeah, right.
You've just got people walking around in an animated environment. So 90% of the image that you're getting may be animated anyway.
Right. That is very true. That is very true.
So you're dealing with a performance in the midst of an animated show. So in a way, you might even say that Dave is probably better qualified than John.
All right, well, that's fair enough. And also, it presents us with a really great public relations move because Dave is so well received by fans and so well respected in the industry. And, you have that bridge from George Lucas. Dave obviously learned at the feet of the master. And so there's just so many pluses with something like that. So you can imagine that might have a lot to do with why Clone Wars is going to be coming back next year, is because the studio is recognizing the value of a guy like Dave Filoni, and Dave Filoni is probably recognizing that too. And as maybe a bargaining chip, he said, I would love to segue into live action. I would love to work on the live action show. I'd love to be a spokesperson for things that Lucasfilm Animation is rolling out, like Star Wars Resistance or Forces of Destiny, what have you. A spokesperson, not necessarily a guy who's working hands-on. And we know Dave Filoni is not really working that hands-on with Star Wars Resistance. He's getting the show up off the ground and probably acting as a sort of consultant. But for the most part, he won't be involved in day-to-day operations of that show. So maybe as a parting thing, before he leaves animation fully behind, he said, you know what? I really like to wrap up Clone Wars the way we always envisioned it being wrapped up. So that's why they're giving him that opportunity to knock it out of the park one last time with Clone Wars before he fully starts to incorporate himself in live action television and then potentially live action films. So I think that's a natural progression. And that's something I think a lot of people would like to see happen because Dave's reputation is so good.
I feel as though, Dave's earned everybody's positivity, isn't he? I mean, he's done such a fantastic job of creating characters that we all love, and he's done such a wonderful job of making it, helping it continue to feel Georgie. And it's not an easy thing. So it's really amazing that he's managed to get as far as he has. And to me, it's a no-brainer that they bring him into a live-action show. I think it's going to give a lot of us... I mean, when we all first heard about the new animated show, we were all thinking, oh, well, we're in good hands because Dave's involved, and everybody just naturally knew that there's going to be a certain standard.
No, we were reporting right from the get-go that it was most likely that Filoni will not be involved in day-to-day operation.
I think bringing Dave into the live action show is a total no-brainer. I think it's just immediately people are going to expect it to be good. You're going to get a goodwill just from Dave's involvement, aren't you?
And regardless of what his involvement is, either as a producer or maybe even a writer, there's a lot of different tools in that toolbox that Filoni can go after. But you know what? Before we go forward, I'd like to hear from a listener, if you don't mind. Do you care if we open up the old Rebel Force Radio mailbag here and get into some voicemail? All right, here we go.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hi, Jimmy and Jason. This is Matthew Rooney calling from Florida. I wanted to call to ask about the new Scream that was supposed to be in the new Solo movie. I don't think I've heard Jimmy talk about it yet. There was some extensive discussion on previous episodes about the retiring of the Wilhelm Scream and that there was supposed to be a new Scream coming out in the new film. As I'm leaving this message for you, there's no Blu-ray release or digital release yet, but I think in one of my subsequent viewings I did hear the Scream. I'm pretty sure it's from the stormtrooper who gets knocked off of his speeder bike on Corellia when Han and Kira are being chased by one of Lady Proxima's goons. So anyway, just curious if you guys have looked into that yet at all, or if you were in agreement with me on that being the actual scream that was being introduced or not. Anyway, thanks for your programming, and may the force be with you.
So Matt is asking about the new Wilhelm scream that Matt Wood has mentioned, stating that the original Wilhelm scream has been retired and there is now a new scream. Something I did notice is I didn't hear the infamous Wilhelm scream.
Right. Yeah, I think you might want to talk to Ben about that one, but he might be retiring it.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, it's out everywhere. I mean, everyone's got it. It's in every movie. And
it's been getting a lot of attention lately.
Yeah.
Before it was just kind of a industry inside joke.
Not anymore.
No, now it's all out there, and so the fun's probably over with that one. Huh?
Maybe that might. Yeah, Ben. Well, there's another scream that's going to be on the horizon here that we'll see, but we're not ready to talk about yet.
Okay, but it is like another from a vintage film or something.
Yeah, it's from something that will be funny, but I'm not gonna.
Oh, you're such a tease.
I'm a tease. Yeah,
you're a tease.
Yeah.
Well,
it's in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. But,
okay.
But
that's all you're going to say. Because you want to keep having fun with this one, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a new Wilhelm scream out there.
I'm not going to go. I'm not going to be quoted saying that. But you're going to have to talk to Ben about that one.
But see, the thing is that I'm not aware of the scream because I don't think we've heard it enough times. We're going to have to keep hearing the scream multiple times before we're able to say, that's the one that they're using all the time now. I don't know. Did you catch anything in Solo that jumped out at you? Number one, did you hear the original Wilhelm scream anywhere in Solo? And number two, did you hear a scream that could be considered the new Wilhelm scream?
No, nothing obvious, I don't think, Jimmy. I mean, I think the thing I'm beginning to notice now is Matthew's voice.
I hear it a lot, yeah.
I kind of feel like I'd like a little bit more tweaking on that occasionally because it's like Matthew's playing so many robots and stuff now. It's like, there's Matthew,
Yeah, really easy to pick his voice out. I was watching an online breakdown of all the different changes that have gone into the original Star Wars film since 1977, including the special edition and the DVD and the Blu-ray release and all these little tweaks that Lucas has added over the years. And the sound mix obviously has been revamped many times. And the original crate dragon call that Obi-Wan Kenobi unleashes and chases off the Sand People with, that came from a stock library and then was revamped to be more of like a whistle sound. And then by the time the Blu-ray came out, it was a combination of Matt Wood's voice and David Acort's voice. But it's so clearly Matt at the beginning of that it's...
You think?
Oh, yeah.
I'd have to listen to it again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all I can hear in my head is, because I used to listen to the Story of album, for years and years and years. So I can just hear that noise of the original Crate Dragon in my head as clear as day. So it's almost like it overrides whatever I'm hearing. Because I'm kind of expecting it, So, yeah, that's odd that it sounds like Matthew.
Yeah, it does. I'm actually going to play it for you just so you can hear it. Because you probably, I don't know how much you've really paid attention to it, but...
Not the new one, no.
Here's the new one from the special edition. Check this out. Okay, that's actually from the DVD release of the special edition. So, excuse me. While I find the actual original... Oh, well, here's the original one. Might as well.
Perfect. Why change it? Right?
Perfect. Why change it?
It sounds like a dragon,
Here's something interesting. Here is the same sound effect heard in the 1960s Hanna-Barbera cartoon Dino Boy. Check this out. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Right in the middle there.
Kind of buried in the mix there, though.
a little bit. But, I mean, that just goes to show you how long that sound effect has been around.
Wow.
Now, fast forward to 2011 with the Blu-ray release. Here is the updated version. Now, you will hear Matt Wood yelling at the very beginning of this. And it is totally distinguishable as being him. Check it out. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That whoa! Check it out. That's solely Matt.
Yeah, but the back end is like, all right, calm down.
And then, and then they crossfade into David Acorn, Matt's studio partner.
It just sounds like a police car or something. It's kind of well freaky. Yeah. Don't you think? I think it's a bit much. It's like, all right, and it is supposed to be Alec Guinness impersonating a Crate Dragon. It's like, whoa. How's he doing that?
So that's a Crate Dragon. But of course, we were talking about the Wilhelm and how we're on this quest to figure out what is now being considered the new Wilhelm scream. And according to listener Matt, he says he's pretty sure it happens. It comes out of the stormtrooper who gets knocked off his speeder bike on Corellia during that speeder chase at the beginning of the film. So maybe that is the new sound. But
you know how I feel about that is it's a bit of fun. And if they can do it without it clonking you over the head, if they can kind of put it in the mix somehow and you just accept it, then great. But for me, it's a little bit like the self-referencing lines a lot. Like in the original trilogy, when the first Star Wars movies came out, I felt like there wasn't an awful lot of that going on. I think they were still building the story, and it didn't need to kind of repeat itself. And I think all you really got was, I've got a bad feeling about this, and that was about it. But by now, it's like, stop referencing yourself, because it's just to me just takes me completely out of the reality that they're painting. No, it's like. It's just too much, and I think the audio is the same. It's like if they keep reusing the same audio, it's like, okay, now I'm in a work of fiction. I'm not in something that I can just kind of lose myself in. I find it that distracting. I don't know. Do you, Jimmy? Are you kind of cool with it?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I also get frustrated when Star Wars references other movies. Like blatantly. Now, I know that George Lucas took a lot of inspiration from old westerns and Flash Gordon.
We had Tarzan and Jedi, didn't we? For a start off, that was like, wait, what?
I hate that. I hate the Tarzan call that Chewie does.
He did a Ron Ely. Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the moment in, it actually happens twice. It happens in the original trilogy on Endor, when Chewie swings on that vine and lands on top of the Scout Walker.
Yeah.
He makes the Tarzan call. Oh, and it took me years to actually discover that. That's what Chewie was doing. But I was like, oh, wow, big Buster Crabbe fan, apparently. Didn't Buster Crabbe play Tarzan? Or Johnny Weissmuller. That's what it is. He's a big Johnny Weissmuller fan.
Yeah.
I just like, wow, really, Chewie? Really? The Tarzan call? I mean, that's just such blatant thing. And, I bet that evolved with Ben Burt just mucking about in his studio.
Yeah. And it would be fun. I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because Star Wars is such a unique beast, because you watch it and it's so much fun. And it's always been fun, and there's always been a very tongue-in-cheek kind of knocking itself kind of part of the story.
Right. But you can cross the line.
At the same time, we all want to take it really seriously and lose ourselves in the world. And so it's a real delicate balance, isn't it? Like what's enough fun and enough silliness along those lines to keep us kind of laughing, but what's so much that it takes us out of the reality that they're building,
But, I mean, to me, it's kind of cringeworthy when you really open your ears and you hear it. And you go, oh, God, that is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, but, here, and actually, here's the sound itself. So that's just Ben messing around in the studio and making edits and messing with the pitch to come up with the Chewbacca Tarzan yell. That's so silly.
I wonder if that's somebody's favourite moment. That's the reason why I love Return of the Jedi. The Tarzan moment.
The Tarzan. And then they repeat it in Revenge of the Sith. They bring it back.
Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they, during the battle? Yeah.
The Battle of Kashyyyk.
Tarful.
It's not Chewbacca at that moment. So that makes it even more discerning that this was sort of like a trend.
A battle cry.
It was like a trend on Kashyyyk where like all the Wookiees were... It is funny sounding, though. I'd have a lot of problem putting that on the cutting room floor myself if I was actually working on a movie. But as a Star Wars fan watching it, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's cringeworthy to me to a certain degree. But I'm not going to gnash teeth over it too much. It is fun. It is fun. Like you said, Paul, it does fuel the fun in Star Wars. So
I mean, no fun in Star Wars kind of is. It doesn't feel like Star Wars, does it? You can't get too serious and too grim. You know, I felt like kind of Rogue One really got right on the edge of that line, where there was enough laughs in that movie to kind of make it work. But any fewer, and it just would have been such a dour movie. I mean, for everybody dying and everything else, you know, you just got to think, yeah, there had to be laughs in that film and in a few places. So, you know, Star Wars has to have laughs, doesn't it? Always.
Even if it's...
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, well, we have news. We have casting news. Casting news that makes all the nerds happy when you could bring in somebody from Lord of the Rings into the Star Wars universe, and that's exactly what's happening as Dominic Monaghan joins the cast of Star Wars Episode 9. Of course, Dominic working with J.J. Abrams before on Lost, which I thought he was extremely likable and great character on that show. And he was one of those hobbits. I forget which hobbit he played. Do you remember which hobbit he played? Merry. Of course, Merry.
Huh?
He played
Merry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he played Charlie on Lost. Mm-hmm. And he's a pretty good actor. I see him fitting into the Star Wars mold real nicely.
Yeah, I guess he's not so big as, you know, every kid's going to go, that's the Hobbit guy, you know. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's strange for me is that, everybody was such nobodies in the original Star Wars movies, and obviously they tried to go the same way with The Force Awakens, by and large, that it's starting to feel like there's a lot of famous faces in this movie, don't you think?
A little bit. You know? I mean, in addition to Dominic, the big news, again, geeks worldwide rejoicing, as Doctor Who, Matt Smith joins Star Wars Episode. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but you know why,
freaking
though, right?
Who.
You know why. He's actually playing Doctor Who, and in the very first scene, he materializes on Acto and takes Mark out of there.
Throws him into the TARDIS?
Yeah.
And off
he's going to show up with the TARDIS, and he's going to go, come on, Luke can't die this way, man. We've got to go back and fix things.
So it's going to be a legitimate crossover. Now, I have to admit, okay... I have to admit, I've never seen Matt Smith act a second in my life.
Right.
I don't watch... The last time I watched Doctor Who was when Tom Baker was the Doctor in the 80s. That was the last time I made it through a full episode of Doctor Who. And it just, again, as we talked earlier in the show, I don't watch too much TV. So Doctor Who, all of these doctors keep switching over. And we know that if you live in London... Isn't it like the law that you have to watch Doctor Who? Isn't that required of all citizens, or you get deported if you
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, we were brought up on this stuff, you know. I mean, I worked on a few of them and stuff. Like, I worked in the David Tennant era. I worked in a few episodes with when he was in it, which is when it really kind of found its feet over here again.
Absolutely.
All my nieces and nephews were crazy about it, and they were just like. They went nuts. I'd send them a photograph of me by the TARDIS, and they just totally flip out.
Sure.
Like, balls by a TARDIS.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I know. It's really, really well loved. And we loved it when we were kids, even though the effects were terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
Cheesy.
But again, it's like that Babylon 5 thing that it never got in the way of storytelling. They go really big storytelling. They'd be like, this week is all about the end of the universe. Now, budget is 50 quid. You know? So it'd be like, tinfoil and fireworks and put the camera out of focus. Look, there's a planet blowing up, you know. But no, I think it's good news that he's going to be in it. And Matt's kind of distinctive in his appearance has changed a bit since he was on Who. So I think he's going to have his own thing going on. But didn't somebody say he's playing somebody significant, which made me wonder what they meant by that.
Variety reporting that Matt will be playing a key role in the forthcoming
key
role.
Yeah.
So so we have Doctor Who. Let's speculate a little bit. You think goody or baddie?
Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know.
He looks like he'd be a great Imperial in my opinion.
Yeah, or he might. I mean, you know, the thing about these actors is we can speculate all we like, and then they can just turn up as some bizarre stick insect alien for all you know. They just use his voice, and we have no idea, do we?
Yeah, I'm thinking Bruce Spence from episode 3. I was really surprised. I was like, "Oh my God!" From the Road Warrior, he's going to be in, and then he turns out to be, like you said, completely covered up in makeup and not in the movie very long. Did play an important role as what was his name in episode 3? Tian Medin. Remember Tian Medin? And he played that. I didn't have to look that up either. To me, it almost sounded like I just Googled it, but I didn't. I still remember stuff, which is good.
Tell you what, while the name's on our tips of tongue, the one thing I should mention about Dominic Monaghan is he's a huge Star Wars fan, right? He's got a tattoo with luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Doesn't he? He has a Star Wars tattoo on him.
Yeah, I think he tweeted a photo of it after the news broke. Yeah, after the news broke that he's going to be playing a role in the film.
What if all these new faces? What if they're all just in the very last scene as the next generation of Jedi coming through? Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh yeah, and that would actually set up a new
just
film.
Like one shot of they just cut to them all and they're all just stood there ready for action. Then everyone would be like, "Give us episodes 10, 11, and 12."
Yeah, really. I'll tell you what. I think Dominic is going to play a character on the good side. He's such a likable guy, I mean, he's a likable. So I think it would be a real change of pace to have him playing a villainous character. But I don't know. I don't know his IMDb but like the back of my hand. Maybe he has experience playing villains, but I've only seen him in a couple of things playing really nice, likable guys.
I mean, his character in Lost became sweet, didn't he, Charlie? But initially he was kind of a bit of a, nasty piece of work, really. He kind of went off the path and became a bit of a druggie and stuff, I think, if I remember right.
Oh, that is right. Well, he had, he was still dealing with, I think the effects of withdrawal when that plane crashed, and I think so. But that doesn't make him a villain necessarily.
No. I mean, it's anybody's guess, isn't it? Anybody's guess.
So he'll be joining new cast members. Richard E. Grant.
Oh, now you're talking. I mean, Richard, he played the Doctor Who as well, They did like a one-off special, and he turned up in a bunch of animated versions of Who. But Richard's, I mean, he's a legend over here. We adore him, I mean, he's most well known for With Nell and I, which is a fantastic movie if you've not checked it out. But he's just hysterical. Have you seen that?
No,
Jimmy.
No.
With Nell and I is just a classic. Get talking to Kyle about it because he's a massive fan of With Nell, as am I. And it's about a young actor living in London in suburbia, and he's not doing very well, and he's struggling, and his life isn't turning out the way he wants it to, and it's just this tragic comedy of errors. But there are so many Richard E. Grant lines from that are super, super quotable.
So he's a Doctor Who, and
he played Who, and
Matt played Doctor Who, of course, Matt Smith, and then you had the Bendu was voiced by Tom Baker. So a lot of Doctor Who infiltration of the
There's
Star
a lot
Wars
of actors in the original Star Wars.
David Tennant did a voice on the Clone Wars. Remember in the Younglings episodes? He was that droid, that ancient Jedi droid. So we have now 4 doctors infiltrating the Star Wars universe. So you think the odds of the TARDIS showing up on Octo are pretty good, huh?
Please.
Get in quick!
Get him quick! Beam him out of there!
So pretty exciting stuff. Also, some other new names include...
Kerry Russell is a big name, isn't she?
Yes, Kerry Russell. Thank you for reminding me. Kerry Russell. And they say her character is going to see some action sequences, maybe.
Do you know what, Jimmy? I mean, when they say things like that now, I remember I just recently rewatched some of the Force Awakens extras and the whole big interview about Phasma and what an iconic and important, significant character it was, and how how it was going to change everything. And then when you actually watch the movie, you just like blink and you miss her, you know.
Right.
So after that, I'm kind of like any of this pre-release stuff that says like this character is really significant or important. I always take it with a real pinch of salt because I don't think it doesn't always end up kind of cutting down to the movie that they shoot, you know, kind of. So I think it's everybody's guess whether the character's significant or not. I mean, you know, they've even cut characters out altogether before now, haven't they? So I'm curious as to whether or not, because they seem to made a big deal out of Kerry, and obviously she worked with JJ before, didn't she? So
right. Well, I mean, she was the title character in Felicity, so obviously
so
they are going to make a big deal about it.
You do think, like, or assume that she'll probably play somebody that's important. Do you think she might be Ray's mom? What do you think? Maybe.
It's possible.
I think Matt's maybe a bit young to play a dad. So, and I don't think Richard E. Grant would go there.
Right.
So,
Richard E. Grant. So, you know, it is possible. I keep just picturing them. You know, a lot of these actors that get announced. You know, just being in a scene or two. You know, and maybe a pivotal scene. Don't get me wrong, but we are talking about wrapping up the Skywalker saga. We're talking about concluding 3 different trilogies in one film. And so I tend to look at things like these casting announcements and stuff and going like, oh my God, how many more are they going to pile in to like dilute the whole story? We need focus. We need focus on characters, you know, like Rey, like Poe, like Finn, you know, like Kylo. We need focus on those characters. We desperately do. And, you know, if they're bringing back Luke and the potential of Yoda coming back and maybe Obi-Wan and stuff, that's a lot of screen time to be fighting for.
Yeah.
So, and just today, there's a new rumor out there that J.J. Abrams is searching for an actress to play a street-smart character referred to internally as Karina. Yeah. So again, I mean, we're talking about characters that might just pop up in a scene here and there, but I'm not really sure.
You know what I'm looking forward to reading about a casting thing? Like, you know, things fall into cliche sometimes, don't they? And I remember, you know, when you get these CVs through, and you quite often get, if you're interviewing people, and one of the things you get is that's very common is used to work in my own, but very very competent working in a group, and I used to be very tempted to throw that one straight in the bin because I was like, that is just so like what everybody says. And one of the things that's going that way now with Star Wars is every character description is kind of, you know, likable, smart, intelligent, you know, sharp.
Street smart,
sufficient. What I'd like to start hearing is like, this character's a complete idiot, useless at everything, and you know,
total dunce,
like just no good, you know. Just to shake it up a bit and give us something different. I know everybody was speculating whether or not Richard E. Grant might be playing Thrawn, and I immediately went no way, because they just cast Lars Mikkelsen. Because I mean, he's a great actor and he's still in movies now, and he looks like Thrawn. So and he does the voice in the animated show. So why not would they cast anybody different?
Again, but, I think to bring in characters from the novels or the comics or even the animated series is a tall order to ask for Episode 9.
Well, I don't think they will, and I don't think they probably want to. Would you want them to, Jimmy? Would you like Thrawn to be in these movies?
Like I said, I'm having fear about all of these casting announcements, thinking that these new characters who we have no connection with, no association with, are going to be stealing screen time, valuable screen time away from characters who really need their stories to be concluded.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I felt about Rose, and it wasn't that I didn't like Kelly Marie or I didn't like her performance. I did. But I just thought, okay, I felt like Finn and Rey were insanely underdeveloped for the second movie. I just felt like we learned almost nothing new about them. Right. And meanwhile, we spent a big chunk of the movie chatting to Rose, and it was like, get rid of this extraneous character that we don't need and build the core group properly first. You know, it's and so adding a whole bunch of new cast members has me worried too. It's like, okay, how's this going to work out? You know,
how many more Roses are we going to be exposed to? And you know, I just want to set the record straight about Rebel Force Radio and Rose, we've never ever had a problem with Kelly Marie Tran or Rose or the character or anything.
I love her.
We've always liked her.
I just felt there wasn't room for her. That was all.
That's it. I think that's a lot of people's problem with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, when I look at The Last Jedi now, especially after the announcement has been made officially that the Skywalker saga does conclude with Episode 9, I look back at The Last Jedi and go, why all the Rose and Finn stuff? It doesn't really make a difference on the overall story at all.
It makes, the thing you got to say is, like, in my opinion, I feel like Rose made more of an impression in The Last Jedi than Rey did. And that's not good.
Well, it just seems like all of a sudden it's a tangent.
It's like not putting Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars for 5 minutes. That's what it felt like to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't complain about that. But
no, it's fair that you do. And I just, if anyone thinks that Rebel Force Radio was a hater of Kelly or of her character Rose, I'll challenge you to go back and find a show where we were harshly critical. We both liked Kelly. We thought she was cute and likable character, and she played well off of Finn.
She was awesome at the premiere too. She was just, what could you not?
That's when she really
so
won me over.
Warm and friendly and sweet, and she was just so happy to be in Star Wars. I was totally rooting for her.
That's when she totally won.
It was just about. It's all about the director's ability to juggle. It's tricky. It's a tall order to put a lot of characters in one movie, and it still amazes me when you look at something like the Avengers, where they're juggling so many balls and they manage to make it work, and everybody gets a moment in the sun. And that is not easy. It's amazing that they managed to make those films still work with a huge catalogue of characters to kind of juggle, and still you feel like you get a little slice of everybody. But for my money, I just didn't feel that was as successful in The Last Jedi. So yeah, I'm very worried about all these new characters coming into 9. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you kind of feel like, well, they bumped a few off, didn't they? They did kill a few different characters, so maybe there is a space to fill and there's room for new people, and maybe it'd be nice to set up a few things that kind of make us wonder about the future rather than kind of hitting a dead end.
Right.
So, it all depends on what the final act's like, doesn't it, and where he goes with it. But
very true.
A lot of people are thinking Richard E. Grant's going to be a villain, but yeah, I don't know. He's done both.
All right. So let's move on now. I just wanted to say that, for the record, we've never talked crap on Kelly or that character. No. So, but let's think about some other new Star Wars coming along, such as Star Wars Resistance. And this is a big week for Star Wars Resistance, riding on the tails of the first look trailer that a lot of people felt was rather underwhelming. We have a new video and article on EW. Meet Team Fireball. And so we get to hear from some of the creatives involved with this new series, and we get a little bit of insight as to what the tone of the series is going to be like, and a little bit about what the story and characters are going to be like. According to the article in EW, the decimation witnessed in The Force Awakens is still a ways off. During this era of Star Wars, this Resistance. Still a ways off. There have been reports that this series is going to take place 6 months prior to The Force Awakens, but that's kind of sketchy information, and Lucasfilm has not made any sort of announcement that that's where it's going to be placed on the timeline. Somebody found it in some, they were reviewing the code that was... when you go to a website, you can take a look at the code by hitting one of those F buttons. I know because I'm always hitting that F button by mistake. And then there it is. It popped up. It was like F10 or something. And so you see all the code in there, and you could review it and look at it. And you see text. And one of the text, the lines of text in the code said that the series takes place 6 months prior to The Force Awakens. And while that could be true, it still has not been officially announced. And they're dancing around it a little bit because I don't think they really even know how far in advance of The Force Awakens this particular storyline happens on the timeline itself. That could still be yet to be determined. But according to the press release or the article in Entertainment Weekly, Force Awakens, still a ways off. So I don't know how a ways off translates in the Star Wars calendar, but that makes me think a little bit larger period than just 6 months. So a longer stretch of time than that. More from the article. General Leia Organa and her X-Wing ace, Poe Dameron, have dispatched BB-8 alongside Kazuda Xiono, voiced by Christopher Sean, to work as spies. Kaz is undercover as a small-time racer who works on the Colossus, which is a sort of way station for galactic travelers. The Fireball is the old ship they're trying to restore, so named because of its tendency to burst into flames or explode. So, we have a clip here, Dave Filoni from the video, talking about Kaz and Team Fireball.
Team Fireball, they're our core Star Wars group. They're not caught up in the bigger things going on in the galaxy. I wanted to have a sense of childlike fun and adventure. And what unifies this team is that they need each other. They need to try and win races to survive and make money. And our hero, Kaz, is still coming into his own, and he's a very, very good pilot, but he's still a bit fish out of water when it comes to living in a place like the Colossus.
The Colossus. The Colossus looks like a big oil rig kind of on water. It is on water, isn't it? Or am I just...
Yeah, I think so. Looks like it.
So that's Dave talking about Team Fireball and the Colossus. The thing that jumps out to me is what Dave says. Childlike fun and adventure. Childlike fun and adventure. That's a theme that keeps popping up in this marketing for the show. So I think that Lucasfilm and Disney and Filoni, they all want us to know, okay, this is a kid's show. This really is a kid's show. This isn't going to scratch some itch, if you're a 40-something-year-old Star Wars fan. It's, but I don't know. I don't want to strip the show of its potential as far as its ability to tell stories in the Star Wars universe. Yeah. But I'm really getting the vibe, and have for a long time, from things that I've heard officially and unofficially, that this show is being specifically designed and marketed for 10-year-olds. And I know you could go back to the 70s and pull up quotes from George Lucas saying, yeah, this is a movie for 10-year-olds. This is specifically for 10-year-olds. But just the general vibe of the cinema in the 70s had much more of an edge to it. And it was generally considered that kids' films were rated G back in the 70s. That's what designated a kid's film, was the rating. Nowadays, you rarely see the G rating for anything, even like Disney animation. But back then, it was really like, anything PG and up would be acceptable for adults. And Star Wars had that edge. It never came off as something that was pandering to a younger audience. It was truly for a younger audience, but it didn't seem like, oh, well, we have to make the humor this way and we have to put some slapsticky elements into it. And I think that stuff just naturally evolved. When I think of slapstick, I mean, when you think of Star Wars and slapstick, what do you think of? Maybe
kind of Jar Jar and stuff.
Yeah, Jar Jar. Yeah, definitely more in the prequel era, but not in the original film. No way, not in the original film. With the prequel era, you can point to a lot of things in George Lucas's personal life, especially the fact he was surrounded by children that he was raising. And so naturally, he would want to tailor what he was creating toward a specific age group. And I think Jar Jar Binks is the most obvious example of that, as you mentioned. But still, the original Star Wars had that 70s cinema edge to it that
it did really, I think,
that didn't play down to an audience. I have a feeling that there are certain things in Star Wars Resistance that's going to be playing down to the younger audience, and with moments of slapstick, etc. Not wanting to jump to any conclusions, but I mean, what do you feel about the general vibe of what we've seen from Resistance so far, Paul?
I don't know. I mean, I feel as though this is a show that only kids are going to like. to be as blunt about it as possible, I think I've got almost no interest in watching it, which is unusual, for me. I'm not excited by what I'm seeing so far, which normally I would be totally on side and just be, pleased about it. But right now, I don't like the way it looks. I'm not excited about the story, and I kind of feel like I should be genuine about that. Like I'm just not interested because I don't have kids.
Right. Right.
So, but I'm really, really happy that little kids out there will have a show that they can potentially really love, and I'm glad that it's set in this universe, and I'm excited to see, that they're just going to keep going with the animated side of things, and that there'll always be a new generation of kids coming through that will have something to kind of get into. And the one thing that if I sound like really down on it, I'll tell you what my main concern is basically like when I heard initially that they were going to be doing a sort of something that had a lot of 2D in it, right? I was thinking, fantastic. This is something that can kind of really open up in terms of scope. And if I had any criticism at all of Rebels, which was very entertaining and really, a fun show and had lots of great characters in it, and it was easy for people of all ages to get into it, it would just be that they were kind of pretty much stuck in one place a lot of the time. It was either about the ship or about the one planet. And because, doing a show on a budget that's in 3D creates all kinds of issues in terms of how many assets do they have and what do we have to shoot with and stuff like that. And it's very much like shooting live action in that you can't have an infinite number of props and stuff like that. So it's quite restrictive in terms of storytelling, and it can be inhibiting. And when I heard they were going to go for 2D, I was like, fantastic. We can planet hop, we can time hop, we can do all kinds of stuff where it's maybe set in all different time periods and lots of, it can be very, it can have a real wide stretch. So I was excited about the possibilities there. And then I realized that a lot of the character animation was 3D converted to 2D, and I just don't like the way it looks.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'm such a visual person that I'm very shallow about that kind of stuff. And maybe I'll change my mind when I see more of it, because to be fair, I haven't seen a great deal of it, and I love like Amy Beth's work and stuff, who's the main art director. I really like her design. She's a very talented designer and everything, so I expect there'll be a lot of beautiful stuff in here. But for me as an adult, it's just, this is the first time since they've been putting out content that I'm actually kind of going, yeah, this really isn't for me, and that's okay. It's hard to kind of like really get enthusiastic for something that I kind of feel is aimed so young. Yeah. I think I'm glad that they've done it, and I'm glad that kids will have a show that they can enjoy. But I'm not super excited about it. I'm definitely much more excited about seeing the last 12 episodes of the Clone Wars. If I was to try and put the two side by side, I mean, this is brand new Star Wars where anything's possible. And I'm kind of running at about a 3 in terms of excitement, but for the new Clone Wars, it's like I'm running at about 12.
Last week, Jason and I were jumping to conclusions that this is a 2D animated show, and a lot of people reached out to us and said, well, no, it's actually 3D using 2D-like assets. And so I can't understand all that. I do know that there are a lot of glimpses at the animation in this promo video, Meet Team Fireball, that I did gasp at some of it. I was like, oh, wow, it looked great. And it was more like the ships and the space stuff and stuff of that nature.
I mean, you got to take your hat off to them that they're trying something different. That's Star Wars has always done that. And I hope that some kid will watch this and just think it's the greatest thing ever. But I think they're being so clear about. I think what it is as well, it's tonally. It just kind of feels like, it's very, very juvenile in terms of the kind of pulling funny faces and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to kind of like get that excited.
Yeah, the slapstick stuff.
Yeah.
So let's burn through some of this audio because we're starting to run a little late now, and I want to get into our review of The Art of Solo. But we have a clip here from Christopher Sean, who's the voice of Kaz, and Justin Ridge, Star Wars Rebels veteran Justin Ridge. I think Justin did some work on the Clone Wars too, but he's the supervising director now of Star Wars Resistance, and they're talking a little bit about the character of Kaz.
I'm Christopher Sean, and I play Kazuda Xiono on Star Wars Resistance. Kaz's job, given to him by Poe, is to spy on the First Order. He's good at flying, but he's not really good at spying.
He's a bit clumsy, gets into trouble here and there, but Kaz is definitely a guy who has a lot of heart and wants to make a difference.
There you go. So he's going to be a real likable guy. I call him Ezra 2.0.
Yeah.
Because he really feels very similar in vibe, enthusiastic, unsure, kind of green, is sort of how we're going to get introduced to him. But I don't think he's going to have the quite the backstory of a Ezra,
Do you know the thing I think I'm picking up from this is whenever if you sit with a bunch of Star Wars fans in a room, you're going to get 50 ideas of what they'd like to see on television, and you might get stuff like, we'd like to see the birth of the Sith Empire, we'd like to see what happened to Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi, we'd like to see a Princess Leia show just before the original. There's dozens and dozens of ideas that I'm sure fans could immediately kind of jump on and kind of go, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure it's what we want, but I get its appeal,
Mm-hmm.
And really quickly, in a sentence or so. But I think with this, I just haven't heard that sentence yet. I haven't heard anything that's going to make me kind of go, oh yeah, that's interesting. It's just okay, a bunch of people on a station. So maybe once we know more about it, I think we'll be able to get much more excited about it.
Well, as far as the general tone and vibe of the show goes, we have Athena Portillo and Justin Ridge. Athena, of course, longtime producer for Lucasfilm Animation, and Justin Ridge, as I said, the supervising director for the series. They talk a little bit about the overall tone, and I think this clears up a lot.
We made the show for a younger audience. I think they'll love the relationships between the characters and all the lightheartedness. It's unique in tone, unique in look. It's a completely different package.
It's very action-packed and vibrant, colorful, and you have lots of different pilots and ships and the different settings. I wish I had a show like this when I was growing up.
Really, the hard sell. The hard sell is right there.
That colorful is that colorful is one of the things that folks on is like that to me says oh yeah, you're hoping that 5-year-olds are going to watch this,
right?
Like colorful.
Exactly. And this could be a great gateway for young kids to get themselves invested in the Star Wars saga. And
one of my favorite things at Star Wars convention is to look at the really young kids that are nuts about Star Wars. I love that. Athena and I, we were in a car park once at LA for Celebration 4, and there was a kid that couldn't have been more than about 3, standing in a Star Wars t-shirt that she clearly was very proud of, and she just lost her mind when a stormtrooper walked by. And it was it was hard not to just feel super emotional about the fact that little kids are still really digging on this. So don't mistake my grouchy old man business to get off my lawn sort of stuff for thinking it's a bad idea. I think it's great that little kids are going to have a show to enjoy.
There you go. In addition to the Lego animated show, the
Hey, I liked the Lego show. I really dug it.
Oh, okay.
I liked them. I liked them all.
And of course, Forces of Destiny definitely plays up to a younger crowd as well. So I think there's going to, I hear you. It's fluffy. It's fluffy and inconsequential, I believe, to the overall saga. But there it is, and it's obviously there to sell the dolls. But I think we'll be getting more out of Resistance as far as profound storytelling value.
Do you think with a lot of this stuff, you kind of feel like people need to be given the opportunity to learn too, and you kind of feel as though Dave's clearly moving on and he's got his hands full, and I really don't think he can have been that involved in this show. I mean, he clearly had a lot to do with its conception. But right now, I kind of feel like, this feels like a whole new sort of swathe of people are probably gradually kind of moving up the ladder and going to get a chance to do their Star Wars. And it's going to be nice to sort of... I've got a feeling that this show is one of these things that might be a slow burner. You might get through season 1, then certain things start to sort of show the value. You might get to sort of like the 10th episode and they start to realise, yeah, this is really working, and then slowly a thing can kind of evolve into something that maybe has a broader audience, or a charm that is cross generational in some way, even if it continues to be aimed at little kids. So I think that by season 2, I imagine that Star Wars Resistance is one of the ones that maybe will have more of a feeling of kind of transformation as it goes on. This is all supposition, but I think all the shows kind of changed and evolved as they went. But out of all of them, I think Resistance is the one where I kind of feel like I bet you this changes a lot between season 1 and season 3. I've just got a feeling about this one that it's got to evolve.
No, if it is given in fact the 3-season deal, part of me feels like this is a placeholder until the Disney streaming service gets up online, and then they'll launch that with a new animated series or yet another one.
Oh, I'd love to know, how people feel about the time period too, because even if it is like a year for the sequel trilogy and stuff, I kind of feel like one of the problems that I anticipated even way back at the Clone Wars show was that we kind of knew where it was headed, and you had that whole prequel problem of we know the outcomes and we know kind of where we end up, but they managed to make it work with Clone Wars, and they managed to. I mean, in fact, it just added to it because you knew that Revenge of the Sith was on the horizon, and you knew. It kind of added to the drama rather than took it away. So it was quite exciting to sort of fill in the blanks. And I almost feel that way about Rebels too, where we had all these assumptions about how the rebellion started that were dashed by the new show and everything. So maybe, there's a lot of stuff that we still don't know about. When The Force Awakens starts, I mean, we're just dropped into this world with very little exposition. So maybe there's an awful lot of stuff in Resistance that they could cover. We could find out much more about how the First Order started. We could find out a lot more about what the difference is between the Resistance and the Rebellion. I mean, because I kind of find it hard to define what that difference is, apart from just the time period. So, it does, even though they clearly are aiming it for a young audience, I think there is a potential there in this time zone for a lot of kind of expanding on the universe and filling us in on stuff that we don't know about.
Like the rise of the New Order or the First Order. I keep doing that. First. I know. And I wonder if in episode 9 things will have evolved with the First Order to the point where they're referring to themselves as the Galactic Empire, because that's essentially what they will be. And so maybe that mantle will be, they'll take up that and they'll be referring to the Resistance as the Rebellion, to bring things around full circle again. So, but I agree that there will be probably some fruit on those branches that give us just like little tiny indicators as to how the First Order has built up their military machine, what the state of the Republic is actually, and the relationship between the Republic and the Resistance. Because from what we know, the Resistance, they were openly operating as a militia and was not necessarily part of the Republic, but allowed to operate under the Republic rule. So I'd like to know more about that, because it confuses me just to hear myself say all that. So, but it was like an unofficially sanctioned militia, that was working on behalf of the government and everything. But childlike fun and adventure. That's what we can expect from Star Wars Resistance.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, do you hear about, like, everybody speculating as to whether or not the Red Stormtrooper is the Cardinal? Do you know about that?
Cardinal from the Phasma novel. Cardinal wore red armor that was more like what Phasma was wearing. It just looked like a red version of Phasma's armor with the cape and all that.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
I do wonder if they could be right there. I mean,
well, here we see the trooper in this video, and he's flanked by 2 First Order stormtroopers. He's talking to some sort of official, and there's a droid on the side there. But he's wearing something totally different than the Cardinal as described in the novel. This guy's wearing what appears to be some sort of pilot uniform and helmet. So I
They
don't
don't seem
know.
to worry about that stuff, though, do you, Jimmy? You know, like when it transfers from one thing to another, they don't really care.
Right.
I mean, you know, Thrawn's wearing a totally different costume to anything he ever wore in any of the books or the comics, or, you know, it's all changed up a little bit.
And also in this new video, we get our first look at General Leia in the animated form, and looks pretty good. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I have to admit, I got a bit soppy that when I saw that. I was like, oh.
And so
Leia's still in there.
She dispatches BB-8 to go with Kaz. So do you think we'll be seeing BB-8 in regular episodes, or he's just going to be checking in here and there?
Yeah,
because there is another droid.
BB-8, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of Poe, right? I think
there is another droid named Bucket, and Bucket who looks like an R2 unit without the casing, and you know, sort of like what I was telling Swank. It's like when you go to the R2 builders room at the convention, they always have a display of an R2 unit without the panels and stuff, so you can sort of see the innards of it. That's kind of like what Bucket reminds me of.
Who's the main droid in Resistance? The guy that looks like the pilot from the old Star Tours. Do you know what his name is yet?
Well, I know Bucket is the astromech. I don't know about the other droid.
The main pilot guy, you know, because he's clearly just pulled from the guy who was on the Star Tours ride, wasn't he? Same look.
Yeah, I don't. That one I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that character. I did not go through this promo video and like freeze frame everything.
No,
like I often do. But like now I'm doing it as we're doing the show.
I spotted the nice Nilo Rodis Jumero speeder bikes and stuff. I was like, oh, cool.
I saw you did post up something like that where you
old Return of the Jedi concepts. Yeah, just popped up.
Right, you showed that with Return of the Jedi speeder bikes next to a frame from the TV show from Resistance. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, Paul. So like I said, be tuning in to Star Wars Resistance for childlike fun and adventure. Unleash your inner 10-year-old. And that's what we do quite often here on Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I must tell you, the source for the Force is Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force. The Force is strong here indeed.
Do you remember that white dress I wore all through the first film? I mean, unless you didn't see Star Wars, in which case, why are you here? So they put the dress on me the first day. They bring me to George. Takes one look at me and he says, "You can't wear a bra underneath that dress." So I say, "Why?" He says, "Because there's no underwear in space." And the man said it with such conviction, too, you know.
Now, let me tell you, I always thought that MeUndies was that really cool underwear brand with the fun, crazy, psycho prints on it, but it wasn't until I actually tried them that I realized that, holy crap, they are seriously the most comfortable thing I've ever worn. I love MeUndies. Guys and gals, listen closely, because I'm going to tell you why MeUndies are the best underwear that you'll ever try. They use a micromodal fabric, which is a full 3 times softer than regular cotton. I couldn't believe how soft these things were. MeUndies is great. They release multiple fun prints each and every month for guys and girls, including other accessories like great matching socks. You can even get a matching pair with your partner. With a 100% satisfaction guarantee. You're going to love MeUndies. But if you're not into it, send them back for a full refund. But I know you won't, because when you visit MeUndies.com/RFR, you are going to be a fan for life. And MeUndies makes it easy because they just launched a brand new membership program. You can level up your top drawer with new undies each and every month. Members gain access to exclusive prints that no one else gets. They get special member pricing on every product MeUndies makes, and you can switch styles or skip any month you want. But do not hesitate, because Rebel Force Radio listeners have a solid in with MeUndies. For any first-time MeUndies purchasers in the Rebel Force Radio listening audience, when you purchase any MeUndies, you get 15% off and free shipping. and it only happens when you visit MeUndies.com/RFR to get your 15% off your first pair, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go to MeUndies.com/RFR. That's MeUndies.com/RFR. All right, joining us now, Lisa Dullard from Illinois, longtime Star Wars fan. How's it going, Lisa?
Oh, it's going good.
Now, fans of following Star Wars on the internet probably recognize Lisa's name as a writer for the Coffee with Kenobi website. What do you write about with Coffee from Kenobi?
Well, I write the odd review, product review, book review. I've written a blog or two. I'm mostly the media specialist and senior editor, so kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Got it.
For the website and
correcting misspellings and formatting. Yes. And so Lisa, the reason we wanted to bring you on board is I've been following your story ever since Solo was released in May. I couldn't believe how often it would pop up in my Facebook feed that you were going to see Solo again at the movie theater. And listen, it's no big deal for Star Wars fans to go see the Star Wars films multiple times at the cinema. But tell us first, how many times have you seen Solo in the theater?
20.
20. So even 20. Was that a goal for you? 20? Was that like, did you say when Solo came out, you said, I'm going to see this thing 20 times?
Well, for Star Wars movies, I usually top out around 5.
Right.
That was my plan. But Solo, it surprised me how much I loved the movie. And then it saddened me to see how many people opted out of the movie. And over time, I had such a good experience each time I went to see the movie. It never got old for me. So I just decided to keep going. As long as I kept... theaters would get rid of it. I'd find a new theater to go to. I'd go to that one a couple times, and I'd find another theater.
That's wicked.
Yeah, and I actually stopped at 20 just because it left.
Just, you were... Yeah. It wasn't your decision to stop going.
No.
So it's completely out of all of the local theaters now. It's not... I think it might still be showing at the Bruin View at the Vic Theater on the north side. So there's a little tip there for you. Oh, you know who's calling me right now? Star Wars artist Lawrence Noble. And I love Lawrence Noble. He's a great guy. I'm going to have to call him back. I'm going to text him and say, sorry, I can't pick up your call right now. Because usually I just drop everything to talk to Mr. Noble. But that's so funny. He's reaching out to me. I was just thinking about giving him a call because he's featured in the latest Star Wars Insider magazine. I have not seen the article yet. Now, of course, for everyone listening, if you don't know who Lawrence Noble is, all I have to say to you is Yoda fountain in front of Lucasfilm. Lawrence is the guy who sculpted that. And he's a brilliant artist, and he's an old friend of mine and the show, and just what a great guy. So I'm really curious to know what he wanted to talk about, and I feel really bad about not picking up his call. So I'm going to text him and say, Paul Bateman told me to blow you off.
See, one of these days we're going to have to share. I have some video footage if we went with Larry once to his local foundry, and when he was sculpting a Darth Maul statue. And it's quite amazing to see them kind of paint it up and get it all looking nice, because the process he uses when he does bronzes involves lots of fire. So it was like seeing Darth Maul be born out of fire. It's quite amazing to watch.
I think they're great photos of that whole process online.
Yeah, we put a few up, but we've got loads of video that we've not got around to posting because it's like an old format. I need to convert it and put it up.
So, but let's get back to Solo and the world record of 20 times. Because, listen, let me tell you, like I said, it's no big deal for us Star Wars fans to go see the movies multiple times. I mean, that's what put the original Star Wars on the map, was everyone went to go see it over and over and over again, summer of 77. I probably have seen the original Star Wars screened in a proper movie theater over 20 times, but it's taken me like 40-something years to do that. Okay, and also, you're
just playing at it. See, Lisa's a proper fan. That's all there is to it. You know, you do your show and everything.
This is not a competition.
If you were serious about this, it would be a priority for you, and you would have already, you'd be talking Lisa numbers for Solo by now.
How many times, Paul, did you see Solo in the theater?
About 4 times.
4 times. I saw it, yeah. I only saw it 3 times.
I was working.
I only saw it 3 times, which is way under my average. Now, during the prequel era, I saw the films probably a dozen times during their initial runs, all 3 of them. The sequel era, I've seen The Force Awakens. I saw that maybe 7 times. I saw The Last Jedi 5 times. And Rogue One 5 times. But Solo I only saw 3 times. And I don't know why that is. But you saw it 20 times in its initial run. And again, like I said, I don't think that there's a Star Wars movie I saw 20 times in its initial run. I think I've seen Empire and A New Hope 20-plus times being screened in a proper movie theater. But again, that was release, re-release, special edition release, charity screenings, you name it, over the course of like 4 decades. But Lisa saw Solo 20 times. Are you aware, Lisa, of anyone else who has seen Solo as many times as you did?
I think on Twitter there was somebody who was at around 19.
Okay, but that's only 19. That's not 20.
I don't know if they made it any more after that. And I can't remember where that person was from. So I don't know if it was here in the U.S. or overseas or what, but somebody commented that they were at 19. They might have surpassed me by now. Who knows?
No,
I would have loved to have seen it that often. I'm really interested in what, I can think of a million reasons myself, but what was the thing that kept you going back, Lisa? Was there anything specific,
I mean, because you're a huge Star Wars fan to begin with, so obviously you'd be naturally inclined to really like this movie. But what pushes Solo over the top for you when you compare it to the 9 other Star Wars films that are out there?
Oh gosh, it's really funny because I wasn't excited about the movie when it was announced, and even in the run up to it, I wasn't, because Han Solo was never one of my favorite characters. So I liked Han Solo, but I didn't feel connected to him in any way. So when the movie was announced, I was like, all right, well, Han Solo movie. Okay. I was always going to see it because it's Star Wars. There's no way I would not see a Star Wars movie in the theater.
Right.
But, I was like, all right, well, whatever. And then I found myself sort of defending it online before it even came out because I could see there was already a lot of resistance to it. And I thought, well, let's all just wait and see when the movie comes out and then you can judge, So the movie and Alden Ehrenreich and just comments, and I was just like, give the movie a chance. So I had the opportunity to go to a press screening on May 14th. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's cool. I've never done this. I get to go downtown, be all fancy and important. And I got there and I got my seat and I sat down and my expectations were nil, really. And I just sat there and the movie unfolded and I left and I felt euphoric. I was most excited about a Star Wars movie after seeing Solo than I was any of the sequel movies or the prequels. I mean, this goes back to the original trilogy, the way that Solo makes me feel. And over the 20 times I saw it, that feeling never waned. I wasn't sitting there halfway through the movie on like viewing number 17 thinking, why am I sitting here watching this movie?
What am I doing here?
What am I doing here?
How did this happen? Yeah.
I need to go home and rethink my life.
But I was always very excited about it. And I always found something new to look at. I would focus on different characters or different scenery or, sometimes I would just pay attention to the reaction from the audience because the later I got into the screenings, the more I noticed that there were new people coming in to see the movie who, waited until the end of July, August to go see it.
Sure.
I was curious about their reactions, and they all seemed to really enjoy it, which made me very happy. But I'd be driving to the movie theater, and I'd be listening to the soundtrack and just excited. I'm going to see Solo again.
Wow, that's great. Now, how did you feel about The Last Jedi? Obviously very divisive, and everyone has an opinion on it. What's your opinion of it?
I love The Last Jedi.
Okay, so that obviously there's no effect there on your outlook as far as Solo goes, because it has been said that people stayed away from the theater due to the fact that they didn't like The Last Jedi, and so they didn't want to give another Star Wars movie a chance. So as for someone who's seen the movie 20 times, how do you feel about that kind of backlash?
Most of the people that I know like The Last Jedi, but I know that some people don't, and I believe Paul's not the biggest fan of The Last Jedi.
I'm going to see a hypnotherapist very soon to try and erase it from my brain. Not to be melodramatic or anything, but
he's going to have to go see Dr. Ball and get a shot of whatever he's serving up.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far, but I definitely prefer the Ewok movies.
Wow. Holy crap.
I wish I was joking.
No one ever said prefer and Ewok movies in the same sentence ever before. So congratulations on breaking new ground. But no, like I said, it's divisive. I don't want to sit here and pretend like it's not. I have my own feelings about The Last Jedi, and I don't condemn it like other people do. But, something about hearing that Episode 9 is going to be it for the Skywalker saga makes me look at The Last Jedi maybe a little more critically, because I feel like the time is so valuable now. And me and Paul were talking earlier in the show about the introduction of new characters being played by guys like Matt Smith and Dominic Monaghan and everything. And we're like, well, wait a second. This is going to take the spotlight away from the characters whose stories really need to be concluded in this film. And so I'm looking at every second now of the sequel trilogy as being extremely valuable. And with the Solo film, I don't know if that kind of anxiety ever came into play with me. The things I really needed to see in the Solo movie was Han acquiring the Falcon in that card game against Lando. I needed to see Han and Chewie meeting up. Just all the things you've heard about Solo, his experience in the Imperial Navy and things of that nature, the Kessel Run. These are things that I felt were essential to a Han Solo origin film. And I probably would have been really upset if any one of those elements got ignored. But thankfully, Solo, they came through with us and gave us all of those important moments in Han's past. Was there any part of the movie there out of those, what I would say, essential moments that really stuck out to you as being maybe your favorite, most well-told element of Han's origin, or was there something that you felt might have missed the mark? I know you're not going to say anything missed the mark. You saw the movie 20 times for crying out loud. But what was your favorite moment about Han's origin?
I really enjoyed the way that he met Chewbacca. I thought that was it was unexpected. Even when he said there's a beast, as they're dragging him off.
Yeah.
Throw him into the thing. I was still surprised that it was Chewie. I wasn't really expecting it.
I wasn't expecting Han to speak Wookiee. I'll tell you that. I was not expecting that. Because he never had in the past. But, those long trips through hyperspace get a little boring, so I'm sure they had many conversations in Wookiee after that. Well, he said, I speak a little, so he only knew how to say a few things.
And he was trying to save his life. So you figure, Chewie was going to kill him, most likely. Yeah. So probably speaking Wookiee to him, I can't pronounce. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the language because I'm going to screw it up.
I didn't know humans could actually legitimately speak Wookiee, but now we know.
Yeah. And we know from the translation, he's not really good at it. Me have plan of breakout. It was, so it was baby talk.
I kind of like the fact that, Alden made that work in the same way that Harrison would make things work sometimes, because he just committed so much to that. He just looked at it like what? Like I'm speaking Wookiee. handle it, And so nobody that I was with when we went to see it had a problem with that at all. Everybody just laughed and went with it, So yeah, I loved Alden. I immediately went this guy is Solo. He's not Harrison, but he just immediately owned it for me. Within about 5 minutes, I think everybody was aboard in the crowd that I was with. Everybody just liked him,
Yeah, I was completely sold on him from the first instant that we saw him behind the speeder. I thought, yeah, that's Han Solo. He did an absolutely remarkable job of something that seemed to be an impossible task.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it seemed effortless, really. I think he really did his homework on studying the character and what he needed to do, and did this performance without impersonating Harrison Ford in any way, because he's not playing Harrison Ford, he's playing Han Solo. I know a lot of people thought he was playing Harrison Ford, or supposed to be playing Harrison Ford, but he's not. Even Harrison Ford is not Han Solo, he's playing a character.
What? No, that's Han Solo is Harrison Ford, and so is Indiana Jones. They're the same characters. No,
Indiana Jones is real. That's a documentary. It's totally. Actually, Star Wars is a documentary too. So we've just not found out yet. I'm convinced that eventually they'll reveal to us that it was all true.
Well, Lisa, I'm sure you're counting down the days until you can go and buy the novelization, which is going to.
I just got it in the mail today from Del Rey.
So did I.
Got a nice little advanced reader's copy, so I'm very excited.
I'm flipping through it right now because I'm looking for the moment, moment.
Where's mine? That's not on.
Well,
how come I got left out?
Ship it overseas to you. I'm looking for the moment, though, and you know what I'm talking about is when Darth Maul showed up.
Mm-hmm.
What was your initial reaction to seeing that go down?
Oh, I was surprised.
Oh, yeah, we all were surprised.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all.
I'm surprised that never leaked.
I was expecting.
I'm surprised that one didn't leak. When you consider the world premiere for the movie was 2 weeks prior to it hitting theaters.
Right.
I am shocked that little bit of info did not leak from anyone.
Yeah, I rang Sam immediately and just went, "Oh man, you're good at keeping your mouth shut." Right? How can we not we didn't get a whiff of that.
Not a whiff.
Not so much as a whiff. Yeah.
So I'm flipping through the book and I'm trying to find that moment. Because from what I understand, and if it's okay, spoiler alert, all right? This is a big spoiler. I found it. I almost want to read it. But I don't know. I think it's only one page. Or was it 2 pages? The leader of Crimson Dawn, the true leader. Red eyes from underneath the hood. But from what I understand, and this is spoiler, Kira does not know Darth Maul. When she contacts him, that's the first time that the two of them have really made any sort of connection.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find proof of that here in the novel, because in the film I was under the impression that they had known each other and worked together. Oh, yeah, but it says he pulled back his hood and Kira saw him for the first time. He was an older Zabrak with scars and wrinkles on his red and black lined face. His horns were short and surrounded his head like a crown. He shifted in his chair and Kira saw the metallic glint of an artificial limb under the robe. So she doesn't know who he is as far as the book is concerned. I certainly hope that we are going to see this little story thread get extended in some kind of Star Wars film. But I don't know, or maybe even in like the live action series or something.
I just hope that I thought that if Solo was the huge success I was hoping it was going to be, I was thinking like, well, we're going to get 3 movies, aren't we, at least? And the second one will focus on Boba, the third one will focus on Jabba the Hutt, but it'll essentially be a Solo trilogy. But we'll get like a Boba Fett movie and a Hutt movie that way, So I was kind of heartbroken really that it didn't go there, because it would have seemed like a no-brainer to me, this whole kind of like an underworld trilogy, and I almost feel like they could have called it like Star Wars Underworld movie 1 Solo, and then movie 2 Boba, you know what I mean? And just carry all the characters through, but just keep shifting the focus and the point of view, And I think they earned a sequel. I think obviously. you feel the same way, Lisa, having watched it 20 times, but I just kind of felt like they really made a good Star Wars movie that hit that line of feeling old and familiar, which is kind of what a lot of fans really, really want. You want it to feel like the OT. I think many, many fans feel that way. But you don't want it to be kind of like boring and unoriginal. You need that freshness too. And I think like it hit that mark perfectly for me. I just kind of felt like, this feels like new old. I love it,
Yeah, and Alden did sign on for 3 films.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they make use of him somehow.
Right.
It's whether it's in the rumored Boba Fett movie, if they bring Han Solo into the Boba Fett movie, if that ever happens, or something on the streaming service, anything, because he was so good, and it would be such a shame to lose that.
I predict we will see him as Han Solo again. When and where, I have no idea. Yeah, I do.
I almost feel like maybe maybe you should have gone for a TV show, but I mean that would have been a big risk, wouldn't it? Starting a solo TV series without being certain how the fans are going to receive somebody new playing him.
All right, here we go.
Unlike you, Lisa, I'm actually a huge fan of the original Solo, and he was my favorite character, my favorite Star Wars character. So I did go into this kind of going, it's going to be tough for this to really work. And and even though I saw Alden at Celebration Europe and thought he really had something special, so I was open to it, but I was still kind of quietly a little cynical. So for me to like 5 minutes in go like, wow, it's Solo, I definitely thought, they've got to do more with this guy. So
his performance really made me, because I mean, now if you asked me before, like my top 10 or 15 favorite characters, Han Solo wouldn't even have rated anyway.
Wow.
Now he's like number 3.
Wow.
Right. Were you really rooting for a Salacious Crumb trilogy? Was that what you were thinking?
That's really amazing, though, to hear about the way your appreciation of the character has evolved so much just from this one film. I mean, obviously, this is a Star Wars character who's absolutely legendary and been known to fans for 40 plus years. Appeared in 4 films and the holiday special, most importantly. But I mean, he has he definitely has claimed ownership of the character. Harrison Ford has, even if he doesn't want to. It's hard to separate Han Solo from Harrison Ford, but there was just something about Alden that really did it for you, and really expanded the character. And I think he did a really great job myself. What did you think of Childish Gambino Lando? Childish Gamlando. Is that stuck on you? No. But how'd you like him?
I liked, and it was interesting because I've never really seen Donald Glover in much of anything. So I'm not really that familiar with his music. I haven't seen him, his TV show or anything like that. So he was an unknown quantity to me. They both were, Alden and Donald. Mm-hmm. So, going into it, I was like, I really haven't seen either one of these guys do anything. So it was an interesting perspective, because I know everybody was very excited about Donald Glover, and I sort of felt like, oh gosh, I don't really know who he is, and I felt kind of bad, like I should. But I really thought he did a great job too.
Yeah, he was fantastic. So going back to the novelization, though, and this is, again, spoiler alert, here's confirmation about the relationship between Kira and Darth Maul in this line. Well, it says in here that she had seen him once before. Yes, in truth, she had only ever seen him once, and that experience had been terrifying enough. So, relationship between Darth Maul and Kira, virtually non-existent, essentially. Interested in why Maul wanted her to meet up in Dathomir, and he sort of was like, yeah, we're just going to get going here. You're just getting started. It's why the interest in Kira. And what do you think, Lisa, about rumors that Kira and Han could potentially be the parents of Rey?
Oh, no.
You don't see it. And
No.
so you were quick to say no. So
No.
why do you think that would be off the table?
Because I believe what was said in The Last Jedi, that her parents weren't anybody, really. And I'm not sure how would that work with Han and Kira to be. I mean, that's Because she's Rey's, what, 20? 19, 20?
Yeah, something like that, right? And there's, how many years between, 20, 30 years between the two trilogies?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't see the two of them, Han and Kira, getting together. So, and having, it just doesn't, it seems very far-fetched to me.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Well, I have, me and Paul, we have the book here, The Art of Solo, and we have a few minutes left here. I just wanted to flip through it real fast with Paul, and then maybe we'll get a little more in-depth on the next episode of Star Wars Influences. But there are a few things here that I wanted to get Paul's take on. And Lisa, if there's anything that you saw in the book that maybe you'd want to bring up to Paul, now would be a good time to do that too. No, I don't want to talk about that. I have all these little bookmarks that, but they're just like pieces of ripped up newspapers, so it's kind of.
But while you figure that out, I'll burn through a couple of bits that kind of popped into my head, which is one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this book, was just finding out that they very clearly had started working on Solo properly before they started on The Force Awakens.
Yes.
Which for me is really interesting, because I kind of think, well, were they thinking that maybe Solo could be the first new movie? Was that where they were coming from?
No, I don't think so, because obviously at that time, Michael Arndt was working out of Skywalker Ranch on Episode 7, and Lawrence Kasdan was brought in. It was like, what do you want to do, Larry? What do you want to do in Star Wars?
Like, well, I always wanted to tell a story about Han Solo. I was like,
okay, Larry, you go do that. Go do that, and let's see what you can knock out of the park. And then when Michael Arndt got his walking papers, and J.J. Abrams made the determination that he needed to completely revamp the script for Episode 7, he knew he needed help. And so Kasdan then was drafted. He was pulled off Solo and placed onto The Force Awakens. And then when The Force Awakens was over, they said, all right, Larry, well, let's get you back on the Solo thing. And he's like, wait, you still want to do the Solo movie?
What? You still want to do it?
And so...
It's uncanny how you have all those recordings just to hand. It's amazing.
Yeah, technology, right? And so then he was just exhausted from working on The Force Awakens, and that's how John Kasdan got brought in to help really flesh out the work that had already been done on the Solo script. And what I like is that it had a working title when they first started putting it together of Harry and the Boy, which is eventually turned into a line from the film.
Right.
Except they spelled Harry Harry. I thought it was like Harry as in he's a hairy guy. And I know it's a play on the, thing, but I was just surprised to see it's, spelled Harry in this book over and over again. Harry and the Boy. I thought it was like Hairy, but whatever. But that's kind of what he called the movie when he was working on it, Harry and the Boy. And so it just kept evolving. And you see the evolution of a lot of different concepts and a lot of different ideas. Even going back to an early drawing of young Han Solo that was created for potential use in The Revenge of the Sith. But that
we dodged a bullet there, didn't we? We really did. I mean, I didn't want to see Kid Solo.
What about you, Lisa? No. I mean, Lisa, you're now completely enamored with the character of Han Solo. Is that a story you'd like to hear about? Is it something about Han's childhood?
Possibly. Maybe in a comic book or a book. I don't really see it as anything to for TV, or certainly not for a film.
Maybe
but it might be something interesting to explore in book form. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Just as long as he doesn't yell yippee all the time. Yippee. So, I'm just flipping through the book here, trying to look for anything really out of the ordinary.
I was loving it. This is the one Star Wars Art of book that has more kind of, where they've clearly referenced wet dogs a lot. Because there's so many pictures of Chewie where I'm like, whoa, what's going on there with his hair?
Well, then how about the amazing concept painting on page 90 that shows Han and Chewie in the cockpit, of the Falcon. Han is
I'm staring at that one right the whole time. Open to that page. I love that picture.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Chewie after he'd abused a blow dryer, right? And so his hair is all puffed up and standing straight up.
It's like me in the 80s. That's basically that was when I still thought crimping irons were cool.
Yeah, me with hairspray in the 80s.
Right.
But it just looks like a lot of different ideas were being thrown out there to see what would stick. And that's how I love the development of Star Wars, is when the artists really just start throwing stuff up against the wall. And, George Lucas would do reviews with the art crew and stuff. And that would really, a lot of times, sort of dictate things that ended up in the final story. Were just things that he saw the art department creating. And you see so many elements of things that never ended up in the final film. So there were just concepts to spare, obviously. And
loads of blue sky stuff.
Yes.
I think that if you compare this to the two books that we had for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and the Rogue One book too, I mean, it's the different people worked on each movie, and obviously there's a common thread of a handful of people that keep going back, but I think out of all the new books, this is the one that really stood out to me as having the most quality art in it. I kind of felt like looking through it, there's a high level of good design. I could see that there were probably more new guys working on this one than the other movies for a start off. There's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of artists who I was already familiar with from not working on Star Wars but working on other stuff. A lot of kind of mainstream, like UK comic artists and what have you, finally got a Star Wars gig for the first time on Solo. So for me, I looked at this and went, I'd have employed about half these guys. I could totally see why they were brought aboard. Where on the sequel trilogy books, I kind of felt like a lot of the people I didn't know they were, and and it was good work, but like the Solo book, it just felt, I don't know, it felt really solid. There's a lot of artwork in there where I kind of go, this could have gone straight to screen. Where I kind of feel like with the sequel trilogy, they're still sort of struggling to find a new way of expressing Star Wars, a new way of representing Star Wars. But I kind of feel like Solo just dropped straight back into that. This is just before the original trilogy, so we kind of know where we are. We need to maybe kind of set it in the 60s rather than the 70s, and but there's so much good art in here and so many great artists.
I'm kind of fond of looking at these concepts for Dryden Voss's yacht.
Yeah. Did you see the one that's the what do you call it? What's the species? I forget what they call him now. Same as Zeb, that guy.
Oh yeah. Okay, so going back then to Dryden Voss himself, a lot of different alien creature designs were considered for him, and one of them is Zeb, he would be a Lasat, is what he would have been.
That's the guy. Yeah.
And that was.
Love the version that they have in here because it's like a fully realized practical Lasat that looks real. I think Ralph would have loved that because it kind of, they brought a real sense of life to him. It really looked alive.
You see 3D sculpture here and all kind of cool. Zeb from Rebels, which of course was a 1975 Ralph McQuarrie pre-production concept design for Chewbacca. And so they got. Let's talk about the McQuarrie stuff in Solo that we can see in this book, since you are the Ralph McQuarrie guy, Paul. We're just going to call you McQuarrie Man from now on. That's your superhero designation.
That's a badge of honor.
But there's a hidden McQuarrie reference, and it's hidden in the strangest of places. Lando's shirt at the end of the movie.
Oh, yeah. One of the early skiff designs or the early Jabba's barge.
So, at the end of the film, when Han wins the Falcon from Lando, finally, Lando's wearing the Star Wars equivalent of a Hawaiian shirt. And if you look closely, it has a repeating design, and it's a starship-type skiff, bird-like wings, and flying with twin suns behind it. And that just became the repeating design for Lando's yellow Hawaiian shirt that you see him in the end of the film, and that was created by Ralph McQuarrie.
Yeah, that one jumped out at me. There were a few in here where I kind of go, oh yeah, look, finally. There were a few like sort of early prototype models and stuff. Like Cantwell designs were going to make the final cut that finally didn't. There was going to be a Cantwell Star Destroyer that was planned to be, and I think it's in here somewhere.
Colin was talking about it on Facebook. And he was disappointed to know that that starship design actually got cut from the final film.
You can actually see it a little bit in that recruitment video.
Oh,
can you really?
Yeah, you can see when Han's trying to hide from everybody in the spaceport.
Right.
It's a cute recruitment video where the Imperial March is playing and whatnot. You see a Star Destroyer, and you do see briefly that design in there.
Wicked.
So it makes it there, but it's quick.
See,
It's
that kind of observation is exactly why Lisa's here, because the film. The film has been out of the theaters now for a little while. I only saw it 3 times. It's the movie is totally not committed to my memory like all the other Star Wars movies are, and so that little attention to detail right there, that's exactly why you're here, Lisa. So thank you so much.
Oh, sure. It took me a few times to notice it. I didn't notice it right away, but then I actually bought the little Hot Wheels version that they came out with.
Oh,
yeah. Because I was like, oh, this is such a cool looking design. I have to have this. And then shortly after that, I was really paying more. It's when I was looking at sort of the background stuff in the movie, because I'd already seen it 10, 11 times by that point. And I was like, oh, look, there's the little ship right there. So, yeah, you do see it it's like a hologram type recruitment video that Han sees.
Wow.
Wicked.
Okay.
I kind of felt like I liked a lot of the as soon as I started noticing the EU nods, that was when I got fully invested. It was like, oh, we're starting to feel a bit Brian Daly, like little, kind of blue skulls and things like that started showing up. And as soon as the words Mimban were uttered by somebody, I was like, totally happy about that. What I noticed for fans of the Tales of the Jedi comic, which I know there's a handful of us out there that are crazy about that, and I've long said that it's one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars EU, and I'd love them to do like Tales of the Jedi style kind of movie or TV show. But they finally have put Exar Kun into this as canon, because there's actually, in as far as the design goes anyway, that there's a table in Dryden's office that apparently is part of a stone from the Temple of Exar Kun.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of really cool that he's finally kind of making the mix somehow. There's a little bit of Tales of the Jedi in Solo. So.
Tales of the Jedi. And of course, Exar Kun was a big-time player in the Kevin J. Anderson Jedi Academy trilogy. So novels, comics, and now in the film, and those old Tales of the Jedi, I think are perfect fodder for some sort of animated feature or series or something, where we see like really ancient Jedi. I guess nowadays it would be the Old Republic games that would really sort of fuel that. But any sort of nods to those old Dark Horse comics from the 90s, definitely, you get a high five from me on that one. So, so the Solo novelization, as we said, is hitting next week. And there has been a trailer released for it. Have you guys seen the trailer?
Yes, I posted it on our website yesterday. And then I took screen caps of a bunch of images because, I don't have the movie to look at anymore. So I have to look at
Well, what's notable about the trailer is it does play up the fact that this is, how do they call it? Expanded edition. Okay. So the novel is an expanded edition of the film. And in the trailer, we get our first glimpses at some deleted footage, things that didn't make it into the final film. And one of the scenes that they show just so briefly was Han and Kira trying to hide in some sort of metallic type container that's filled with liquid. We don't know what it's all about. They're escaping from Proxima's gang at this point, at the beginning of the film. So we're going to have additional scenes that feature that getaway. Also, the characters Tag and Bink were supposed to remember them from the Dark Horse comics.
Oh, yeah.
They were supposed to be featured in one scene, at least, that we know of in Solo. So that may end up in the book. Maybe more of Han's career in the Imperial Navy.
Yeah, I think we see how he washes out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to see more with Enfy's Nest and her gang at the end of the movie. A little more detail about their association with the rebellion. and how that all plays into the big picture. Something I heard that also could be included in the book was a scene with Enfys Nest and Saw Gerrera.
Right.
Have you heard about that, Lisa? You heard about that?
I've heard it. Yeah. I think it was in an excerpt released on StarWars.com, but I didn't read any of the excerpts because I just wanted to wait for the book.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that was in one of the more. I think they released like 3 different excerpts, and I think it was in the 3rd one.
Got it. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to. Star Wars novelizations that add so much bonus content really prove their worth to fans, and I didn't get that much out of The Force Awakens, but the books that have since followed it, the Rogue One novelization certainly added a lot to that film. The Last Jedi had lots of sequences that didn't end up in the final film, and now Solo's really going to stretch it out. Do we have any ideas to like how many deleted scenes are going to end up on the Blu-ray? Has any of that information been leaked?
There's quite a few. I think there's like 7 or 8, maybe. Yeah, a lot more of Han with the Imperial Navy. There's going to be a whole section of that. I think a little bit more on Corellia, which I love because I loved the whole Corellia thing. That was fantastic.
Well, shoot, we're only a couple of weeks away from that coming out. It comes out digitally on September 14th, and the Blu-ray gets released on the 25th. So, yeah, you're going to have to slam on that novelization, and then you'll be ready for the Blu-ray. And then, so, like, what are you going to do? Watch the Blu-ray once, Lisa? You've seen it so many times. It's just like, I saw it in the theaters.
I'm over it. I've seen it too many times now.
It was better in the theaters, yeah.
I've already said I'm going to watch it every day for the rest of my life.
No way.
And then when I die at my wake, I want it to be screened, so everybody has to sit there and watch it.
Wow. That's amazing. That's hardcore. I remember the only time I've made a comment that far reaching, in terms of like, I'm going to watch this for the rest of my life. I remember talking to Stan, a friend at Dreams and Visions Press, and I said to him, you do realize, Stan, that I've looked at the art of Star Wars probably every day since 1977. And he just gave me this look that was just like, dude, you really need to get a life. It's like, no, I'm proud of it. It's like, no, it's kind of a sickness.
I believe you. I have my original copy of Art of Empire Strikes Back that is completely falling apart. All the sheets are falling. I mean, it's so well used, looked at so many times. But okay, so you're going to be watching Solo every day. And that's really interesting. So we'll check in with you in maybe a couple of months and see if you've completely snapped or not.
Yeah, my father doesn't even know how many times I've seen Solo in the theater. He'll ask me, and then I actually took him to see it with me one time.
Yeah,
and he enjoyed himself. He did have a good time. But he asked me this morning. He says, "How many?" Because he knew I was going to be on the show, and he says, "So how many times did you see it?" And I said, "Do you want to know?" And he said, "No, I don't. I don't want to know."
I have one of those, Lisa, where I remember like many, many years ago, my partner from long ago, but we had like our refrigerator broke down, and I'd literally had the money to buy a refrigerator, and that was it. And I went out to get a fridge and came home with the Star Wars Chronicles book, like in the fridge. I just completely forgot about it because I just saw this book and went, I can't leave it alone in that shop. When I come back, it might not be there, So, I did without cold milk for a long time and got some serious telling off.
All right, I have a list of the deleted scenes. Here's what we're going to see. Proxima's Den, Corellian Foot Chase, Han Solo Imperial Cadet, the Battle of Mimban, extended, Han versus Chewie, extended, Snowball Fight, Meet Dryden, extended, and Coaxium Double Cross. Well, so, hey, Lisa, that's cool. You're going to see more of that Han versus Chewie scene that you like so much.
Yeah.
Maybe Chewie speaks English to Han in that one.
Wouldn't that be something?
Well, he's like, and it's Peter Mayhew's voice.
But there is some behind-the-scenes footage of him doing that, isn't there, when he's on top of the Falcon repairing it in Empire.
Right. I always remember.
Well, where are you going?
He says,
Mike.
Yeah, he says about Alec Guinness. He's like, that old man's mad.
Yeah.
That old man's mad.
You said it, Chewie. Boy, where did you dig up that old fossil?
So that's good stuff.
So it could happen.
You could catch that.
In my life, this one caused me.
Oh, I'm hearing something. Okay, sorry, I had some audio bleeding in from some ad or something. So okay, well, you know what? I think we'll probably come back to the art of book, like I said, in a future episode of Influences, if that's good with you, Paul. And
man, I've got a long chat with me about that one.
Good,
sure.
Good. So, and we'll just like dive really in depth at that point. And
I have to watch it at least 20 times before we get there, though, because I just don't feel like I'm anywhere near as informed as Lisa.
Oh, I know. That's why I felt like we really needed her expertise for this one. So you didn't let us down, Lisa.
Oh, good.
No.
And so, Lisa, if people want to follow you online, do you still? You used to go by the Jedi Pug moniker. Is that still your thing?
I'm Jedi Pug pretty much everywhere. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
that creative. So on Twitter, I'm at Jedi Pug 1. Instagram, I'm Jedi Pug 1. Facebook. You can reach me at coffeewithkenobi.com. I'm Lisa D at coffeewithkenobi.com. That's where you find me.
20 times. That's the record. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the Rebel Force Radio record right there for most times seeing Solo in its initial release. And again, like I said, very common for Star Wars fans to go to the movie theaters multiple times to see a release. But I can't think of a single Star Wars film that I was able to go to 20 times in its initial release. So for that, we celebrate you here. We celebrate you here.
Yeah.
Your efforts. Yes.
I always think about, that moment when Alec Guinness met that kid. I don't know if you know about that story with a little kid walked up to Alec Guinness and said, I've seen Star Wars like 50 times or whatever it was. And Alec Guinness said to him, like, well, I'll sign this autograph on one condition, that you never see that movie again. And the kid's like, and I think like, I can kind of understand where he was coming from. But I think Solo is one of those rare movies where I think 20 times is not unreasonable. I mean, obviously we're biased because we're Star Wars fans, but I think it's that good. I think it deserves it. I mean, when Jimmy first told me you'd seen it like 20 times, Lisa, I thought, well, yeah, quite right. I think most like serious Star Wars fans would think that was perfectly reasonable.
Oh, I had a lot of people cheering me on.
Really? Did you? Were you sponsored? That's probably the way to do it, right?
Oh man, I should have done that. Why did I?
Yeah, and you missed a trick. You could have gone like 40 times, couldn't you?
Oh gosh, and to put it into context, to go to the theater 20 times normally would take me a couple years.
Wow.
Because I really don't make it that often. Right. So really, to go from May 14th to August 13th to be at the theater 20 times.
Yeah, my only badge of honor, Lisa, is I saw The Force Awakens 3 times in 2 days on 2 different countries.
Oh, wow.
And flew, and I'd have watched it on the airplane if I could have,
Right.
I just looked up the schedule for the Bruin View at the Vic Theater, and it's no longer showing Solo. Yeah.
Well,
oh, wait, no, hold on. I should look at the website here. I'm just... no. Sunday the 18th, it appears, was the last screening of Solo at the Bruin View. So, because I was going to say, Lisa, hey, let's just go for 21. I'll meet up with you over there and we'll take in Solo one last time. But
I would have done that. Absolutely.
Well, it's not there no more. Well, we have 2 weeks to wait for the Blu-ray, or the digital release at least. So
it's going to be wild. Do you know when with the digital release, did they go as full on with all the bonus material and stuff? Did they do as many kind of bonus features and stuff?
Yeah.
Somebody said to me the other day, so I mentioned a DVD to somebody and they were like laughing. I was like, what are you laughing at? I was like, you still got a DVD player? I was like, well, no, I've got a Blu-ray player too, but they were talking in like a granddad with a DVD player,
Oh.
So hang on a minute, I've still got a VHS player,
Old man with your physical media.
All 3.
Yeah, well, it's a different experience, isn't it? Mm-hmm. There's nothing quite like watching Star Wars with will it play all the way through without getting gnawed.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for this review of the art of Solo and all the other cool things we talked about. All things Solo here. I'm glad we're getting back to talking about Solo because it just seems like we went through this whole summer without really taking many more deep dives other than the initial than the initial release. So this is good. This gets me revved up for both the novelization and the Blu-ray release. And so we'll be talking a lot more about Solo here on Rebel Force Radio as September rolls along. So thank you again, Lisa Jedi Pug, and Paul Jedi Labrador Bateman. Paul, you're more of a cat guy, right? So
yeah, I like the Wolfies too. I'm a big fan.
We'll call you Jedi Feline.
Jedi Mog.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, and thanks so much for joining us. And we'll check back in with you, Lisa, after you've seen the home video release about 50 times. So that'll probably be about a week after its release.
Yeah, I'd say about a week. Yeah.
Thanks for giving me an excuse I can now talk to Athena about it, Lisa, and say like, well, Lisa's seen it 20 times, so we can go again.
That's brilliant.
It's normal. I'm not a freak. Lisa went 20 times. It's fine.
Right.
All right, Lisa. Thank you guys so much for the great Solo conversation.
Thank you.